This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. The Princess of Wales recently co wrote an essay called The Power of Human Connection in a Distracted World, which could be found on the Royal Foundation website. It's heartfelt, thoughtful, and centered on something we all struggle with: how to truly connect in a busy digital age. But beyond the inspiring words lies a bigger story. This essay wasn't written alone. Catherine collaborated with Harvard professor Robert Waldinger, one of the world's leading researchers on happiness and relationships. So, why would a British royal partner with an American academic from Harvard? What message are they really trying to send? And to whom? Is this simply a well meaning call for empathy and connection? Or does it reveal how the modern royal family is reshaping its image, aligning with global institutions and the language of mental health, neuroscience, and emotional well being? In this video, we'll explore the essay, the collaboration, and the subtle shift in royal messaging, from tradition and faith to science, wellness, and global partnership. Let's go ahead and take a closer look and decide for ourselves. Now, before I get started, I'd like to preface and say the Princess of Wales likely means well here in this recent essay, The Power of Human Connection in a Distracted World. It's warm, eloquent, and filled with compassion. On the surface, it's a thoughtful call to recenter our lives around empathy and human bonds in an age of distraction and digital overload. And I want to read it to you first because we need to have a serious conversation in some of the things being said. And this is not to bash Princess Catherine. This is just to point out a couple things to make you aware the power of how the royals use language. The essay begins. What keeps us happy and healthy as we go through life? If you could invest in just one thing that would help you and your family thrive, where would you put your time and energy? These questions might seem simple, but their answers hold profound implications for how we live our lives and raise our children. Science gives us a surprisingly clear answer. The quality of our relationships matters more than almost anything else. The Harvard study of adult development, which began in 1938, represents the longest investigation into adult life ever conducted. Over the decades, these researchers studied every major domain of life: mental health, physical health, work, relationships, and aging. After following thousands of people from their teens through their 80s and 90s, examining data from their 20s, 30s, and 40s to predict who would stay healthy and live longest, the researchers discovered something remarkable. The best predictor of who would live a happy, healthy life wasn't blood pressure, it wasn't cholesterol levels, it was the quality of their connections with other people. The people who were more connected to others stayed healthier and were happier throughout their lives. And it wasn't simply about seeing more people each week. It was about having warmer, more meaningful connections. Quality trumped quantity in every measure that mattered. It makes sense that warmer relationships can make us happier, but how can they also help to protect us from various diseases and health conditions? As other studies began finding the same patterns, scientists started understanding the powerful biological pathways through which human connection influences our health. Much of it relates to stress regulation. Good relationships helps us to find balance and manage the inevitable stresses of life, preventing them from breaking down our bodies over time. The implications extend across generations. People who develop strong social and emotional skills in childhood maintain warmer connections with their spouses 6 decades later, even into their 80s and 90s. This demonstrates that these skills are not only teachable, but have remarkably long-lasting effects. Teaching children to better understand both their inner and outer world sets them up for a lifetime of healthier, more fulfilling relationships. But if connection is the key to human thriving, we face a concerning reality. Every social trend is moving in the opposite direction. For the past 70 years, we have been investing less and less in each other. We are less likely to have dinner together as a family, something we know has an enormous impact on child development. We are less likely to have friends over. We are less likely to join clubs and community groups. Perhaps the most troubling of all, more people than ever report having no one they can confide in about what is going on in their life. We live increasingly lonelier lives, which research shows is toxic to human health, and it's our young people, age 16 to 24, that report being the loneliest of all, the very generation that should be forming the relationships that will sustain them throughout life. While new technology has many benefits, we must also acknowledge that it plays a complex and often troubling role in the epidemic of disconnection. While digital devices promise to keep us connected, they frequently do the opposite. Our smartphones, tablets, and computers have become sources of constant distraction, fragmenting our focus and preventing us from giving others the undivided attention that relationships require. We sit together in the same room while our minds are scattered across dozens of apps, notifications, and feeds. We're physically present but mentally absent, unable to fully engage with the people right in front of us. This technological interference strikes at something fundamental. Our undivided attention is the most precious gift we can give another person. Yet increasingly, it's the most difficult gift to offer. When we check our phones during conversations, scroll through social media during family dinners, or respond to emails while playing with our children, we're not just being distracted. We are withdrawing the basic form of love that human connection requires. The challenge is particularly acute for today's babies and young children who have been born into a world immersed in digital technology. Neuroscience has shown us that early childhood is the golden opportunity to build strong foundations for future life outcomes. Pregnancy to the age of 5 is the fastest and most profound period of brain development in our lives, with an astonishing 1 million new neural connections being formed every second. The brains of babies and young children are at the most malleable and open to change as they constantly adapt to their interactions with the outside world. Children who are raised in environments rooted in love, safety, and dignity are better able to develop the social and emotional scaffolding required to form healthy relationships, resolve conflict, and grow into adults capable of building love partnerships, families, and communities themselves. Ultimately, by nurturing the development of social and emotional skills in early life, we will be equipping children with the capacity to love and be loved. These skills will influence their success far more than academic achievements alone, and will touch every part of their lives, from how they form friendships, to how they raise their own children, to their values and the decisions they make. Honing these skills could be transformative as we look to the future and imagine a very different world. The Royal Foundation's Center for Early Childhood's Shaping Us framework and series of animated films launched this summer are designed to showcase the many ways we can support the development of the social and emotional skills of our youngest children. These films can help everyone understand the remarkable value of routine interactions in forming loving relationships. They celebrate the everyday moments of connection shared in every story, cuddle, and whispered word of encouragement. Providing this kind of nurturing environment is not always easy. It is important to acknowledge that adults are best able to care for a child when they have good social and emotional skills themselves, when they are healthy and have resources and assistance they need. Those who have experienced significant adversity, including in their own childhoods, may understandably need more support. Likewise, it is a greater challenge for those facing difficult personal circumstances, whether financial or due to poor health or social isolation. But just as science is confirming the lifelong importance of connections, we exist in a world that is more distracted than ever. For babies and young children, the pull of screens will be even stronger than for older children and adults, the habits more deeply ingrained as they grow. Yet, this is precisely the period when children should start developing the social and emotional skills that will serve them throughout life. We're raising a generation that may be more connected than any in history while simultaneously being more isolated, more lonely, and less equipped to form the warm, meaningful relationships that research tells us are the foundation of a healthy life. So, what are we going to do about these trends driving us away from human connection? The answer begins with recognizing that attention is something we can choose to give each other in every moment, at home, at work, in our communities. It requires conscious effort to be fully present with the people we care about. It means protecting sacred spaces for genuine connection, family dinners, conversation moments of genuine eye contact, and engaged listening. For parents, it means understanding that the foundations for this are laid at a remarkably young age. In fact, before we're even born and in the earliest weeks and months of our lives when our brains undergo the fastest and most profound period of brain development. It means modeling these behaviors for our babies and children and teaching them skills they will need to navigate a world filled with technological distractions. It means helping them understand that true connection requires presence, that relationships need tending, and that the quality of their connections will shape not just their happiness, but their health for decades to come. These social and emotional skills are teachable, and teaching children to better understand both their inner and outer worlds and how to best manage them sets them up for a lifetime of more loving and more fulfilling relationships. This may be the most important investment we can make in ourselves, our families, and the future of humankind. The evidence is clear. If you could invest in just one thing to help you and your family thrive, invest in the relationships you have with each other. This is not just about creating a more loving environment for our children, it's about creating a more loving world, and that begins with a simple, deliberate act. Look the people you care about in the eye and be fully there, because that is where love begins. For babies and children who are raised in attentive and loving environments are better able to develop the social and emotional skills that will allow them to grow into adults capable of building loving partnerships, families, communities. This is our children's greatest inheritance. So I'm going to go ahead and give Catherine the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that Catherine has any type of hidden agenda. This recent essay, it is definitely eloquent and warm and filled with compassion. And on the surface, it is a thoughtful call to recenter our lives around empathy and human bonds in an age of distraction and digital overload. I can agree with that. Now let's go ahead and have this serious conversation as we look deeper. It's hard not to be skeptical. After all, this is the modern monarchy, an institution that has survived for centuries, not just through duty, but through the management of perception. Every word, every initiative, every cause is carefully designed to shape optics, and this essay feels no different. Catherine's partnership with Professor Robert Waldinger is especially revealing. Waldinger isn't just any co-author. He's a Harvard psychiatrist, a Zen teacher, and director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the largest running psychological studies in the world. His field is the science of happiness, emotional health, and connection, ideas that sound universal and apolitical. Yet, in today's climate, these very concepts form part of a global wellness movement tied closely to elite institutions, philanthropic foundations, and soft power messaging. Just look at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And let's be honest, Harvard isn't the unchallenged symbol of excellence it once was. Its reputation has been sliding, especially in the United States. What was once viewed as a pinnacle of higher learning is now seen as a bastion of elitism, censorship, and ideological conformity. As we're seeing with the Trump administration, Harvard found itself locked in a legal and cultural battle, accused of suppressing dissent, losing its moral compass, and prioritizing ideology over truth. Funding freezes, lawsuits, and political clashes pulled back the curtain on an institution many Americans once revered. Harvard still carries prestige abroad, but domestically, it's become a symbol of what critics call the globalist academic establishment, detached from ordinary people, obsessed with optics, and insulated from accountability. So when the Princess of Wales co authors with a Harvard professor, it's not just an academic partnership, it's a statement. It places the royal family in direct alignment with the same elite institutions that many now distrust. You follow me? And it's no accident that the language of the essay mirrors that of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's public messaging. Words like connection and thrive and mental health and neuroscience, trust the science, are the modern soft power vocabulary, the language of global initiatives, corporate empathy, and philanthropic branding. The essay reads less like a royal reflection and more like something that could have been drafted in a World Economic Forum workshop on emotional so-called resilience. You know how Harry loves to use that word? Now, of course, the essay's tone is uplifting, but uplifting isn't the same as grounded, if you understand where I'm getting at. You see, this essay speaks about disconnection, loneliness, and the need to reconnect. But what the authors fail to acknowledge is the practical hard realities causing that disconnection. Realities like parents in the UK working long hours to keep up with rent and energy bills, especially if it's a single parent household, or families still reeling from the social isolation of lockdowns. I think a weak point of this essay is glossing over the adversities that people are facing today that doesn't deal with technology. And there's something that's quietly missing, and I'm pretty sure many of you have picked up on this, and that is the element of faith and religion. The British monarch is literally styled, or supposed to be styled, as the defender of the faith. Yet nowhere in this essay is there mention of the spiritual, of church, or of the moral framework that once gave the nation its center of gravity. Instead, we get secular neuroscience and Harvard data, the language of measurable emotion and universal wellness, stripped of cultural or religious context. That's not an accident either. In today's media world, if you haven't noticed, secular humanitarianism plays better globally than Christian tradition does. But it's also exactly what fuels public suspicion that the royals are no longer grounded in faith or nationhood, but in global alignment, a kind of soft diplomacy meant to rebrand the monarchy for an international audience. And I have talked about this in a couple of videos now about the survivability of the institution. Where do they take this next? And apparently, it looks like they're abandoning Christianity in favor of this godless New World Order that's based on science and the environment. Trust the science and data, they tell you. How did that work out for us during COVID? I hate to be critical of Catherine, but this is where the essay feels less like heartfelt reflection and more like strategic narrative engineering. You start to recognize it more and more with the royal family, and things might not be what it seems. Partnering with an American academic from Harvard, an institution symbolizing global intellectual power but declining public trust, signals something larger. We've learned a lot from Harry and Meghan in how the institution markets the royals. This situation, I think, is a PR calculus. By aligning with science, Princess Catherine appears modern, data-driven, empathetic. Not to say that she wasn't empathetic. She's always been empathetic. But you add these other things that align with what these globalists are pushing, it does appear that the monarchy is being positioned alongside the same elite worldview that ordinary citizens like me and you and the people in the UK simply just reject. And this isn't something that's new. William, Catherine, Harry, Meghan all position themselves as champions of mental health, emotional intelligence, and, we can't forget, empowering the youth. Remember, Harry had stated in his engagement interview that he wanted to make the youth see the right way of things. They speak the same language used in global philanthropy, media psychology, and the so-called shared humanity campaigns. But that language also conveniently shifts attention away from the hard systemic problems, the kind that requires political accountability and economic change, and into emotional territory where nothing concrete is ever promised. In other words, the message is morally safe, universally palatable, and deeply strategic. If Meghan Markle had written this exact same essay, critics and tabloids would have dissected every line, calling it self serving, woke, or opportunistic. But because it comes from Catherine, the tone is perceived as noble, scientific, and dignified, and yet the vocabulary and framework are virtually identical. And I'm not trying to pick on Catherine, but I think when there are moments to call this kind of stuff out, you can't look the other way just because you're on Team Catherine. Look, I adore her, but I think partnering with this guy and placing almost all the blame on technology for this sense of disconnection, to me, I find a bit short sighted. Religion, particularly Christianity, has long been rooted in fostering connection, promoting the nuclear family, and encouraging love and compassion. This essay was a missed opportunity to defend the faith, which could have provided a common ground for connection. The current approach in the UK, emphasizing multiculturalism and the integration of multiple faiths, is unlikely to create cohesion. Diversity, while often celebrated, can also highlight divisions, especially when the system is perceived as two-tiered and unfair toward native white populations. Meghan Markle's emphasis on race has forced myself and many people in society to focus on skin color. And the imagery chosen for this essay, if you look at it, highlighting only brown individuals, reflects exactly who the UK is prioritizing. Couldn't they use multiple families or a mixed race family to show that everybody is included? They want cohesion. Why is there this constant undertone of separating and segregating people based on the color of their skin? This is supposed to be seen as soft power, wrapped in kind words. It's supposed to look benevolent. It's supposed to sound modern. But when you strip away the rhetoric, you're left wondering, is this about connection? Or is this about control of the cultural narrative? I get that Catherine's doing a lot of good work here to make sure that children grow up in a loving and secure home, but that's not the reality right now. The reality is being ignored, from the rapes of the British girls in the UK, as well as all these migrants coming in, and the UK taxpayer has to pay for it, putting stress and strain on the actual family. So, what do you expect with families not being able to spend the time or to carve out time to spend with their families? They're working 70, 80 hours a week and on weekends, as well as tethered to their device if emails are coming in. What do you expect? When you look at Harry and Meghan and you look at William and Catherine, they're not that different when it comes to the so-called humanitarian work that they're doing in the space of technology. They're all working towards the same goal, which is the controlling of this information and how we are allowed to use technology. It's in a way a bit hypocritical and talking out of both sides of their mouths, especially when the UK is going forward with digital ID, putting technology in every corner of people's lives. You can't really say that people need to be more connected to one another, essentially spend time talking to one another when society itself is forcing this technology onto people. You can't really have an argument here. If this is really the focus and technology is to blame for this, then now is the time to use the whole of society approach that the World Economic Forum always is talking about, which means everybody needs to take a step back from technology. But the likelihood of that ever happening is zero because these tech bureaucrats and globalists will never put humanity over profit. I think it's about time these globalists and wealthy elites need to take accountability for the state that the world is in at this moment. And they haven't. So when you hear things like this, as much as I adore Princess Catherine, I can't help remain skeptical of the real intention of all of the work that the royal family does. I mean, so far, it's all in alignment with this Agenda 2030 and the enslavement by the World Economic Forum. And targeting the youth and pretending to care about the youth is all about getting them, as soon as they come out of the womb, to mold and shape them into the society that they envision. And I don't find it surprising at all, almost coordinated, essentially, focusing on social media and the mental health of men. Here's Harry popping up on some panel here in New York City to talk about the growing crisis about the life expectancy of men here in the United States, all due to technology. Is it a coincidence? I don't think so anymore. I truly don't. Prince Harry addressed social media as what he views as one of the most urgent alarm bells. He said too many young men are being raised by algorithms that make them feel powerless and hopeless rather than mentors. They seek guidance online and find themselves in digital spaces designed to maximize engagement through outrage and division, not to support healthy development. Now, you know that this ginger douchebag is capitalizing on the death of Charlie Kirk by talking about the mental health of young men and social media being the place where it is creating this division. Allegedly, Tyler Robinson got radicalized in these spaces online, and here Harry is thinking that he is the expert on all things with mental health and social media. Like, this guy is so fucking repulsive to me now. He argued that changing the incentive structures of these platforms, rewarding connection and empathy instead of exploitation, could fundamentally shift how boys grow up. What did Catherine get done talking about? This technological world and how we've become more divisive. And what is Harry talking about across the pond? The same damn thing. How many more coincidences do we need to have in order to say that it's not a coincidence anymore? You can say that Harry copied this, but I don't think so. I mean, when you look at all the initiatives that Harry and Meghan have worked on when it comes to mental health and going to the universities like Harvard and Stanford and giving money to those institutions to look at behavior and the effects of social media and neuroscience, and then you relate it back to the work that William and Catherine are doing, and then you see all this weirdness going on with Harry and the media and the stories about him going back. Honestly, folks, I don't think Harry ever left the institution. Again, this goes back to the failed mission that Harry was on here in the United States. Like, I'm disgusted by what the royal family allowed these two to get away with over here. And we were lied to. But still, we go along with this circle jerk. You know, the royal brand is not as shiny as it used to be. That's all I can say. Like, I want this guy to just get the fuck out of this country. Really, that's all I want. This asshole holds responsibility for not only interfering with the 2020 election, but also funding and contributing to violating American civil rights and censoring people. And let's not forget those organizations that are being funded, tied to Antifa, but we'll address that in a separate video. Why has this guy not been deported yet? And I apologize for being upset over this, but seeing this guy in my city where I had to leave yesterday out of fear that those protests are escalating and something is going to happen, knowing that this guy and his friends have contributed to the destruction of our cities in America, sure, it pisses me off to no end, and rightfully so. But anyhow, these are just my opinions. Yeah, I do think that there's coordination with the palace and Prince Harry on the specific events that he's showing up at. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Catherine drops her essay today, and here we have Prince Harry out there talking about the same thing. Again, this is just my opinion and feelings. And I would hope that people that are listening to this respect it as only that. This is not an attack on Princess Catherine or coming from a place of hate. This is just a mere criticism of a project or an essay that she's worked on. And I hope that we could have a civil and peaceful conversation, because we really do need to get back to being able to express or not be afraid of making a criticism without being attacked or feeling attacked. Anyhow, what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.